Hello and welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show. I'm Tina Patterson and I'm delighted for the guest that I have here with me today. I'm here with Gary Barnett, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Huler, which has been listed as one of the top 100 inspiring workplaces. Pretty impressive. He has also held the Chief Technology Officer role at other companies and has advised several large companies on digital transformation. The reason, though, that I really wanted to interview Gary today on my show is that he's really super passionate about shaping a people-first future of work and doing this with the very best technology. So, Gary, welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
Fantastic. Well, we started talking before we hit record a little bit about your leadership style. And as I said, I love that person first philosophy. But can you share a little bit about your own style and how it has changed throughout your career?
Sure. So my career began in the technology industry, working in teams of software engineers. And then moved into research and consulting, and I got to work with a whole bunch of very smart people. Of course, in common with most people who rise to those positions, with no actual training or coaching on how to be a leader or a manager, you sort of pick this up. And in part, I've learned an awful lot from the bad experiences I've had from managers. Perhaps I've learned more from those bad experiences than the good ones. But also, actually, I've been blessed with some very good managers in previous roles. So the transition for me has been particularly marked, I think, in the last 8 or 9 years, where I began to realize that people were taking what I said very seriously. So my tendency to sort of opine on topics and express sometimes not super thought out points of view on topics was a little bit dangerous, because people would think, oh, well, maybe I should be thinking that. Whereas I was kind of expecting people to push back and challenge me. And it was that final realization that people aren't challenging me not because I'm smart, but because they perceive some sort of, hierarchy barrier that prevents them. So that was the first thing I learned that I had to do, particularly working in research, was to make it clear that I wanted to be challenged. That in fact, many of the people working in my teams were way smarter than me in those domains and those topics. And I'm not the expert on 3D printing. The reason why we've hired someone with a background in it is because they're the expert. So I might opine about resin versus powder to my heart's content, but they really know what they're doing. And then the next phase. The biggest change, I think, came when I founded a tech startup. And I had to do everything from the ground up. We had to do employment contracts. We had to do our HR policies. We had to find premises and hire people. And learning the hard way, the nitty-gritty of that, informed a lot of my thinking now about management and leadership. And we were talking about it earlier, but I'll reprise the conversation. I hired 3 apprentices. So these were young people, 17, 18 years old. And it was my first experience of managing really very junior folk. And it was that moment I realized that if they'd not done something right, it wasn't their fault, it was my fault. Wow. And it's that, right, so now I have to change my head. I have a responsibility, it seems, to make sure people know where the zombies are, have the tools they need to get rid of the zombies, and know that I'm there ready to bring them more tools and more support if they become overrun by zombies. And in California, I don't know, you'd call it servant leadership or whatever, but from I tend to put it very simply, the zombies are there. Here's what you need. That's my job. And if at any point you don't know where the zombies are, or you feel you don't have what you need to deal with the zombies, then interrupt me, because that is my only job, is to make you able to do your job. And it's a surprisingly liberating experience for people, I think. And people nearly always respond brilliantly to that. Yeah. And in my current role, it's interesting because I joined the company at a very liminal phase. about to go into a new phase of its evolution. And there were a lot of challenges in the team, and one of the reasons I think I was hired was my approach to people. And 18 months in, I can honestly tell you, I don't feel as if I've had to use any CTO superpowers with this team. I feel a bit embarrassed at their success because I'm like the fireman who's turned up at the nightclub fire and just opened the fire escape. That's all I've done. I've not gone in and carried people out. I've not, done anything brave or courageous or clever. All I've done is say, well, that seems silly. Why don't we do it the way you want to do it? Or, little things like we had, part of Huler's business is bespoke software development, where we create brilliant employee experiences for big banks and telcos and all sorts of companies. The other part is our SaaS business. When I joined, the people who worked in the bespoke development team couldn't see the work that the people in the SaaS team were doing because they didn't have permission to view that stuff. That's crazy. So, big executive decision was give these people permission to see each other's work. And again, I don't think I deserve a statue for that choice. I don't need a medal. This is just straightforward stuff. So that, every time these things work, it's reinforced. Every time you get a positive outcome from something you try, it becomes reinforced. So I've become a bit of a kind of maniac for saying, listen, I have a point of view and I'll tell you my point of view, but you guys can bully me out of that point of view any day of the week. If you come to me and say, we think we should do it a different way, then why would I disagree with them? They're the people doing the work. So yeah, sorry, I rambled, but that's my journey to today, I guess.
That's brilliant. And I love that focus of accountability, though, on you as the leader to say, hang on a second, if someone in my team drops the ball, what role did I play? Where could I have been clearer, as opposed to, oh, they're just not very good. I love that focus and that accountability that you have, as well as challenging people and ideas. It's really interesting. A very famous business person here in Australia, he's known for saying, if I have a yes man working for me, one of us is redundant. And I love that thinking of, okay, we shouldn't all agree with each other all the time, and that is actually a really wonderful trait that people feel they've got the psychological safety to say, hey, Gary, I disagree with you. But that also starts from a point of trust as well. So yeah, that's fantastic. So
yeah, and underlying that is also a willingness to accept the possibility that you as a leader might be wrong about something. And there have been occasions when running teams when I've said, can we do it this way? And they said, well, actually, no, we prefer to do it that way. And I thought, well, that's not going to end well. And I almost smugly, I said, okay, kids, you do it your way for a while, and let's wait till you mess it up. And they make an enormous success of it. And you think,
yeah,
okay, oh my goodness, I was wrong about something. And then cope with that.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I often say is we are all works in progress. Doesn't matter if you're a CEO and who's got 50 years experience, we're all hopefully still learning, and that student for life mentality of we can learn from anyone. And often it is also learning from people who are at the start of their career, because they come with fresh eyes and aren't bogged down with the things that you and I might have always thought, well, this is the way it's done. So I love that thinking of being open to all different people and different ideas. So Gary has mentioned, one of the reasons I wanted you on the show was your focus on really thinking through a people first future of work and enabling that with the very best technology. So can you share what your views are on what makes people first, as well as what would you want leaders to start thinking about now when you think about and are designing for a people first future of work?
Wow. Okay. So two super questions there. So the first one is probably best answered by explaining how Huler came to be. So our CEO, Nikki Hoyland, worked in management roles in a bunch of companies around staff management, staff development, training, and support. And I think she got tired of the fact that so much corporate software is positively hostile to the user. The experience of signing up for a training course or simply requesting leave on some of these corporate systems is truly, truly hostile. And so she started with this idea, look, surely there is a better way. Surely there's a way we can take away these points of friction, these points, frankly, of kind of discontinuity between the employee's experience of work and the employer's experience of employing them. And what you find very quickly is, particularly with HR systems, is that they're designed to appeal to the people who sign the purchase order. So they have all of the stuff that the senior management want from a HR system, but employees find them incredibly difficult and complicated to use, whether it's simply requesting leave or applying for expenses. And then we look at the whole kind of what do I need to do my job well question. And in a lot of corporates, I need a bunch of information. And what do we do in corporate world? Well, we create an intranet. And I mean, and I've always joked that if you have a really secret document and you want to know that it will stay secret forever, put it on the intranet, because once it's on the intranet, no one will ever see it again. Intranets are where information goes to die lonely and in the darkness. And so this idea of, well, if I'm in marketing, there's a bunch of stuff that I need to know. I need to see the designs for our fall campaign. I need to see the planning for our spring initiative. I don't need to know the production rates of our Milwaukee manufacturing plant, and I don't need to know that there's a brown bag lunch happening in our office in Buenos Aires. There's a bunch of stuff I need to know. There's a bunch of stuff that is just noise and chaff. And wouldn't it be great if I had an environment where the stuff that I need to know was at my fingertips, and all the stuff I didn't need to know was still there if I need, if I was morbidly curious about what they do in a brown bag lunch in Buenos Aires. But so the software that we've started to create, or that we have created in the form of Huler, is a thing that's designed to put the stuff you need and bring it to your fingertips, whether it's the information, whether it's access to process. So maybe instead of having to log in somewhere and click the mouse 14 times and remember how you did it, remember your password, remember the weird code you have to put in to ask for vacation as opposed to sick time. What if we just give you a simple tile that says, I'd like some leave from here to now, here's why, and a button that says okay. And why don't we then take that, convert it into whatever weird structure the HR system wants? Why don't I make it easy for you to book leave? Because in fact, having a well workforce is all about making sure everyone does take their leave. It's all about, so why make it hard? So it's that bringing of stuff together, and the fundamental role of a leader is to create that sense of direction and purpose. So the zombies are over there. Point to the zombies. We all need to agree that that's where we should go. And my next job is to make sure that people have the skills and the tools they need to be amazing zombie killers. And my next job is to keep asking them, are you all right? Do you still know where the zombies are? And also to keep an eye, because zombies move around, have they moved? Do we need to change? Do we need to adjust course? Yeah. Do I need to get feedback? And part of that then is this idea that we have a responsibility to take away every single barrier to awesomeness that the people in our teams encounter. And that's, fundamentally my job as a leader. And I think that kind of partially answers the second part. Part of your question.
I love that. Well, on that note, I love your thoughts. Obviously, work has changed a lot over the last couple of years in terms of when we do it, where we do it, etc. What are the skills that you're seeing or that you believe that leaders need to amplify now if you're thinking about the future of work and what inspiring leadership looks like, what are the 2 to 3 skills that you would recommend that people really focus on?
I think the biggest one is always communication. But the answer to that communication question is a really gnarly one, because there are all sorts of different ways in which we can and should communicate with people. We need to explain to people what our policies are. We need to provide that more formal, structured communication. We need to engage people around the vision. So we need to provide something that's a little bit more future thinking. But we also need that personal connection with people as well. And as teams become increasingly remote, that's obviously harder to do. You know, I can't bump into people at the coffee machine or at the water cooler. So there's a little, and by little I mean really tiny investment that I need to make to occasionally check in on team members. So there's a sort of it's I guess it's a fairly structured approach. You know, I say to my team, if I'm green on Teams, then you are welcome to interrupt me at any time.
That's your
It's as
open
simple as
door
that.
policy. It just looks a
Well,
little
yeah,
different.
and no, absolutely. And again, yeah, I'm not claiming this is rocket science. You know, this is stuff that actually, when you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Then the other thing is, I am kind of obsessive about making sure I have my one-on-ones with my direct reports, and fairly
Wonderful.
obsessive about making them have their one-on-ones. And the key thing about those one-on-one meetings is that the one-on-one meeting isn't my time with my report, it's their time.
Yeah.
And if they want to use it talking about their weekend, or where they want to go on holiday, or a particular problem that they've encountered, or what can I do to support them, that's for them to choose. It's not about me managing them, it's about them exchanging and using that time. The other thing I do, in there are a very small number of things I insist on. And the other one is a Friday report. So I say to all of my direct reports, sometime on Friday, just send me a tiny email that says what has gone well this week, what hasn't gone so well, and what worries you about next week. And I do tell them, this is something I'll get snippy with you if you don't do, because this is really important for me, because I want to end my week knowing what dragons I have to fight on Monday.
Yep. Wonderful.
Because I don't know, I might want to walk the dog and think about something over the weekend. I'm not mad for working on weekends, but so it's that blend of informality and structure and a bunch of things in between. And some of these things I think will require us to think differently, but it's once you try them, the feedback is generally so positive that they become habit very, very quickly. So the other thing I do is, in addition to those structured things, is I do occasionally pile into someone's chat and say, you know, do you have 5? Do you fancy a cuppa? And I do run, you know, it's not entirely random, but you know, I try and talk to people from the top to the bottom of my team, and across every role, just to say hello, just to partly satisfy them that, you know, I'm not trying to be this remote in my ivory tower leader person, but also just, you know, just to take the temperature of how stuff goes. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion about, oh, you know, remote work, you know, really hard. It's not hard. It's not hard to manage remote workers. It's no harder than managing workers that are all confined in the same place. It's different, and there are some different approaches we need to take. But you know, if I need to see someone sat at a desk all day long, I've hired the wrong person, or the wrong person has been put into my role. Because part of this is about making sure that you have a team you trust and respect and want to get on. And you know, if you don't trust someone, if you don't respect them, why would you appoint them? You know, it's now, you know, it's true that there are some occupations, you know, as knowledge workers, we are blessed with the fact that, in fact, all I need is a laptop and an internet connection. There are some occupations where it makes a lot of sense. It's definitely true that even amongst my developers, who are very dispersed across the country, we've got some for whom the drive into the office is 4 hours. In fact, I'm one of them. Our offices are in the North Midlands in the UK, and I am way down south in the New Forest. We've got some who are super local. Some of those super local developers love going into the office. It's a great atmosphere there. And absolutely they do. Um, and we do definitely need to take time to bring everyone together physically. So we do, but we do it sensibly and we budget for the fact that some people are driving for 4 hours. So that means let's get them there the day before, take them to dinner, give them a hotel so that they're not getting up at 4 in the morning. So again, there are some accommodations we put in place. But again, we're not having to go into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights to deliver these accommodations. These are relatively trivial things that we're doing just to again make it that little bit easier. So we do have at least once a quarter we aim to have a good day, sometimes two
Yeah,
days
wonderful.
of everyone together time. And the other thing is on the whole communications thing, because I have this conversation quite often with people. It's the other thing we do is every team pretty much every day has at least half an hour set aside for chatting nonsense. Um, um, so it's a meeting, it's a recurring meeting, and people can drop into it, people can drop out of it. But it's very much again, this is you know, again, if you want to talk about a really funny experience you had in a restaurant last night, this is the great moment to share it. Um, and part of that is to sort of distinguish between some of the more formal structured meetings that we want to have. So our stand-ups where, we're trying to make our stand-up calls really quite pointed. Let's get this done
Yep.
quickly. Let's make sure it's information, it's not blather. But there are other contexts where actually you're there for the blather. You're there for those tiny things.
Have
And,
the
and the other
fun
thing
bit
is,
in
I
work.
think,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing is, I don't know, in some of the discourse about, we need people to come back to the office, there is very slightly, I think, an element of 1950s management culture sort of exposing yourself very slightly. So, you know, if I haven't walked my dog, the chances are you would see him on this call. He will come and visit. Not because he cares about the call we're having, but because he would actually rather like me to take him out. We have gorgeous babies appear on our team's calls, and that's not a cause for ruffled feathers or we didn't do that in the 18th century. That's totally cool because you know if someone in my team has got a little one at home, um, they've got a little one at home.
Yeah. It's
Embrace it.
acknowledging we all have a life outside of work, whatever it is, whether it's little kids or we've got dogs or elderly parents who need help or whatever it might be. But I love that because I think previously you had to compartmentalize and be very professional of I'm showing up for work and then I'm not going to tell you anything about all the other stuff that's going on in my life. And I think that authenticity that is coming with that we are, if you have a look, I can see into your home, you can see into my home now and learn a little bit about, what's going on. I think that's healthy. And that's the person first also that you mentioned there as well.
Yeah. And back to, that idea of outcomes over hours. If you've got to drop your kid off to school, for goodness sakes, drop your kid off to school. And yeah, you'll start half an hour later. And do I need you to tell me exactly how minutes late you were? And do I need you to call me at the end of the day to assure me that you did 27 extra minutes at the end of the day? Well, why? Why would I add that to your burden? We will all know at the end of the week or the month or at the quarterly review, at the half yearly review, if things are going well or not.
Yeah,
And frankly,
completely.
if you choose to do that by working like a maniac for 3 hours in the day and then doing weird evening work and that's totally cool. And obviously there are some constraints around that. There are team meetings where
Yep.
I do we have a responsibility to our colleagues to be present at those
Yeah, absolutely.
meetings.
It's a two-way street.
But absolutely, and I don't want to go too far down this role because big and down this road because I I I don't necessarily think a kind of purely cynical outcome, results based approach to management is necessarily productive. But one of the one of the things I do try and emphasize, I do an annual talk on diversity, which is ironic given that I'm a white male heterosexual a middle class guy, in tech. But one of the points that I make there is, that this stuff makes commercial sense.
Yes.
If you give people some flexibility and you care about their space and their time, if there is an emergency and you need them, or it would be very helpful if they did a couple of extra hours, people are much more likely to be willing to give that time.
Completely.
So, Machiavelli would be in favor of this approach, and we encounter this. We in the summer in our organization, we had a load of stuff to ship, lots of pressure, lots of work to do, and people were working extra hours and long hours, and some people were starting to feel burnt out and stressed by it. And our response had to be, well, yeah, listen, and we are really sorry that we
Right
found ourselves
now,
in
the
that
business
situation.
needs, yeah, absolutely. I call it the peaks and the
And
troughs. There are
no,
times
absolutely.
where
And
it's all hands on deck. And then there are other times where you go, okay, we can take a breather. And I think that's important because business cycles, as you know, it's not usually like this. It
no,
is
but
more like
it's
this.
important also. It's important with that all hands on deck thing, though, to acknowledge that we don't want that to be normal.
Yes.
Um, when you see job adverts which say must be willing to work in a fast-paced environment, that's a big red flag for me because fast-paced environment means chaotic and poorly planned and managed.
Yeah.
Now occasionally there's a poorly planned and managed thing that I do, which resulted, if I had been able to effectively plan and manage, my team wouldn't have gone through this phase. Again, I am so grateful to them that they were willing to do it, but I also have a real responsibility to say, okay, so what did we do wrong? Did we Were we too optimistic in our estimates?
Yep.
Did we inadvertently overpromise? Were the other side of the business, um, you know, too generous in their expectations? And how can we have those conversations? Shall we have a retrospective and figure out what things could we do better? Things like this are going to happen again, but I really don't want people to go, oh God, yeah, so we screwed this up again, haven't we? And we're now in a big rush in the last quarter before this big shift. So and actually, you can't expect your team to stay with you if you don't show them a commitment to learn from those experiences
Completely.
and make the changes. So again, I've made some promises to people in the middle of that chaos, and I said, listen, I will do my best to make sure that the chances of us being in this situation again are significantly reduced. It's totally on me to make that happen.
I love that.
And if I don't make that happen, and people get grumpy, or people leave, or people feel dissatisfied, it's not their fault. I
Yeah.
made them a promise.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, on that note, as you know, outcomes over hours is all about working smarter. How can you deliver the value for your people, customers, organization, and still have time for whatever and whoever you love outside of work and looking after yourself? So I'd love to ask you, Gary, what's the best, most practical advice you've been given to work smarter?
So I think the two things that I would talk about are take ownership of your time. Um, so I could easily have weeks where every single day was 8 or 9 hours of back-to-back calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do that by clicking accept on every meeting. And if I really want to be sure that I have back-to-back meetings, I can say to my team, "Oh, I need to be in on that call. Oh yeah, copy me in on that meeting invite." And I can choose to fill my week with 40, 50, 60 hours of meetings. Or I could take another approach, which is to say, the first things I'm going to put into my calendar are when I'm going to take my lunch, when I'm going to walk my dog. I walk my dog in the afternoon and in the morning. That's time I book. It's
Wonderful.
Now it's time I spend bizarrely thinking about all sorts of things, including work. It's still productive time. And then, the secret to a lot of this, I think, is doing the stuff that is absolutely the stuff you should do, and a lot of it is really small stuff. And I think the secret to real success is doing the easy things regularly and consistently. So we all know that a certain number of the meetings we attend are meetings we don't need to attend.
Yeah.
Just just make a decision to say no. Make a decision to allocate part of your week to doing your work. And that might be blocking that time out. You might say, listen, I'm good for meetings on Thursdays and Fridays and Mondays, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they're my core head down work.
Absolutely.
I don't really mind how you do it, but the other thing I think as leaders that we need to do is that classic, we need to delegate. We need to make sure that we have people we trust to make those choices. And so now increasingly what I'm saying to my team, if they ask me if I want to attend a meeting, I say, well, will I add value or will I slow it down? Is my being there going to help you or not?
I love that.
And they very rarely say your being there is going to be a real disaster and slow everything down. They're normally too polite for that. But actually, I'm open to the possibility that actually me asking extra questions to a bunch of people who have been wrestling with this problem for weeks longer than I've been thinking about it might just be making them go over old ground over and over again and be delaying. So if people in my team need to hold a meeting to agree something or change a policy or change a process, and they don't think I'm going to add a ton of value, I just tell me what you decided. You don't need me in that meeting. So, and again, it's a challenge, I think it's a challenge we have to set ourselves. But the beginning of that challenge starts with, it is really, really true that if you have a diary full of meetings, that is because you have accepted a whole bunch of meeting invites.
I love that.
And once you get to that wisdom, you can go, oh, so what if I didn't accept a meeting? What would happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes the outcome is better.
Oh,
for
completely.
Everyone.
It's funny. In my Outcomes Over Hours program, I actually have a module which I've called Meeting Madness for exactly that reason. And, I hear people say in corporate a lot, I've got back-to-back meetings from 8 till 5. My real work starts after then. And I kind of think, well, hang on, if that's your real work, what are you doing between 8 and 5? So I love that, what you say, Gary, of take ownership of your time. And I agree with you. It's one of the best ways that you can work smarter. So I would love to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
Go on.
Okay. What is the best purchase you've made under roughly $100 over recent years?
Okay, so it just slips out of recent years, but the Kindle, my Kindle wins hands down. I used to spend about 4 months of my year traveling with work. So I used to be in the Asia Pac region for nearly a month a year. I used to do two trips to Australia plus 8 or 9 other APAC countries. It was always a kind of a crazy tour, and I used to carry so many books with me that I was in danger of damaging my spine. I used to have a bag full of books because I'm an avid reader. So the Kindle is probably the game-changing tech purchase for under $100.
And you mentioned you're an avid reader, as am I. You can probably see my bookshelf behind, and that's only in this room. But what is the book then that you've either recommended or gifted the most to other people?
Right. So this is a tough question because I read a lot. I recommend a lot of books as well. But I think in the context of this conversation, the book that I'd recommend is I'm forgotten the actual title, but it's Managing by Kindness, and I'm going to look up the authors for you so that
we can put it. We can put it in the show
that's
notes.
Brilliant.
So the Managing by Kindness. Oh, I love that. Fantastic.
And and again, it's the thing I like about it is it's not preachy. It talks about what are the beneficial outcomes of managing in a more kind and empathetic way. And it's, this isn't about being woke or being hip with a sisterhood. This is about what can we do collectively just to get the best outcome?
Amazing.
And
I love that.
and that is very rarely, as to your point and to the work that you do, getting the best outcome is very rarely a function of let's just do more hours.
Yeah, completely. And what is the most fearless thing you've done in recent years?
I'm not a big doing fearless things kind of person. So when I go with my kids and they do these treetop walks and so on, I'm was very reluctant to be dragged into walking across telegraph poles and so on, even with super safe safety harnesses and so on. But I think the 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 most outwardly fearless thing I did, it was actually quite a fearful thing when I was doing it, was leaving a really brilliant job with a great team at a brilliant research consulting organization. I was a chief analyst of a brilliant product, working with some amazing people. Leaving that to be a founder of a software startup was,
oh, wow. Yeah,
a big leap, and
That's
much scarier than jumping off the platform and landing in the cargo net at the Go Ape activity center. That I can remember opening the door to the little office unit and walking into this empty space and thinking, "Oh crikey, right? There's no HR. There's no someone making sure the electricity is
it's
there.
me.
There's no one. There's me."
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was quite a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Gary, I'd love to ask you, what does outcomes over hours mean to you?
I think fundamentally it means getting back to what is actually important. If we're in business, we have a purpose. We have investors who've invested in us because they believe that we're going to achieve a certain thing. Investors will never make an investment decision on the basis that they're satisfied that you will be able to get 50 hours a week out of your employees. That's almost never a reason. They're interested in, can you invent this new thing? Can you open this new market? Can you deliver this value? That's a reason for investing. The number of hours you're going to get out of your team is never, it's never discussed. So it's that focus on, why are we here? What are we doing in this room? Is being in this room going to help us build more cars or make better washing machines or help our customers get ship better marketing campaigns? And if the answer to that is ever, God forbid, no, or fairly often, I'm not really sure, then it is true. It's probably best that someone just turn the light off and leave that meeting room empty. It's air conditioning that we don't need to pay for. So for me, it's that, why are we in the room? We're not in the room to make sure everyone is at their desk for 37 or 40 hours a day. That is a stupid indicator of productivity. It's a stupid indicator of happiness, and it's a stupid indicator of effectiveness. There are better ways of, how happy people are, I think, is a far better indicator of likely productivity than the number of hours people are in an office or at a desk.
Me too. Oh my gosh, that's the perfect note to end on, Gary. So Gary Barnett, thank you so much for your insights and for being a guest of mine today on the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thank you very much.